Hi, everybody. That was a tremendous talk from Troy. He really gave us a good perspective on what's happening with AI. AI has really exploded in the last 12 months as a technique and a tool, and it will have a tremendous impact on cybersecurity. Today, I'm going to be talking about measuring risk at cloud speed with AI. I'm Nayeem Islam, Vice President, Product Management, and the Cloud Security Group at Qualys. So yesterday, we introduced the Enterprise TruRisk platform, and one of the critical elements of that platform is measuring cyber risk. And one of the things that I'm going to describe today is that as people migrate to the cloud, they often neglect very important things that are required for measuring risk in the cloud. In particular, you really can't effectively detect threats in the cloud without AI. And this is a really important piece of how people can move forward in detecting threats. One of the challenges is that if you look at when you migrate into the cloud, you typically focus on vulnerabilities and misconfigurations. An often overlooked piece is the use of threats in determining risk. In particular, it's very, very important to have good hygiene. So vulnerabilities and misconfigurations are the first thing that people look at. But if you ignore threats, what happens is that things like beaconing activity, malware, suspicious communication, and unauthorized activities can lead to a compromise. And we've seen this over and over. In fact, in our own experience over the years, hygiene is something that people focus on first, but threats are often overlooked. And there is a reason for this. Threats are hard to detect. And so sometimes they go overlooked, sometimes they're missed. They're hard for a variety of different reasons. One is that, as some of you know, there's close to 1 million new malware samples that are created every single day. And traditional techniques for detecting these malware require signature matching. But it's extremely difficult to keep up with this volume. You just can't create signatures fast enough, and you cannot get them sort of dispersed throughout the systems that need to do checking for threats. Then sandboxes are often used. Now, the challenge with sandboxes is nowadays they're pretty easy to evade. The second thing that happens is that they can take a lot of time. And let me just say a few more words about that. So one of the very, very problematic things about sandboxes that are used to look at these novel threats is that often humans get involved to unravel and explain what is going on, and that can take hours. We have seen it take weeks. And then you have to sort of generate signatures that get propagated. So there's a time lag. So now you have a challenge. Just detecting threats is hard, and when you do get to detect threats, they take a long time. So for ephemeral workloads in the cloud, these techniques for new threats simply cannot scale. So again, to effectively detect threats in the cloud, you need AI. At Qualys, we have developed deep learning to detect threats with 99% accuracy. We detect it in milliseconds. It's a self-learned technique, so there's less manual intervention. There are no signatures. So there's a lot less overhead in operationalizing a system. So this is one of the key components of using AI for detecting threats in the cloud, that your operational headaches are removed. So these 4 points are critical. And this technique for deep learning-based AI threat detection is part of the Total Cloud platform. I'll be showing a demo shortly. and it has high detection efficacy. It's extremely fast. So with these two points, you can scale the system at cloud speed and cloud scale. So for example, we will show that you can use this technique to scan containers. So if you have a huge number of containers every single day that you need to get scanned, you can do that. If you need to monitor network traffic that's coming in fast, you can do that. So those are techniques that are absolutely critical for making this effective. Now I'm going to take a step back and say that AI systems, it's only talk until you deploy it and effectively use it. Qualys has a mature AI system that we have a customer called Centrica that has been using it for 2 years. And they knew from the beginning that using threats that for risk measurement was critical. So this was a part of their thinking from day one. And so they validated our system, and it's been in operation for about 2 years. And as you can see, they have had experience with high efficacy of detection and extremely fast detection in their cloud. And they were also pretty savvy in the sense that they knew that signature-based systems were not going to work, and they engaged us very early on in the techniques that we were developing AI, and they became a design partner to help us make progress on our system. But we've been able to deploy the system at very broad scale at Centrica with good results. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the platform itself and how we've deployed it throughout the product. So Qualys Total Cloud prevents threats end-to-end. What I mean by that, it's from development to runtime. So we scan containers for malware using AI. And that's part of our shift-left strategy. So if there is malware and you detect it, you will not run the container. At runtime, we monitor network traffic and logs for malware, unauthorized communications, suspicious communications, cryptojacking, and beaconing. In the demo, I will show examples of how we can detect malware variants, which is becoming a problem in the cloud infrastructure, in cloud applications, and also very difficult to detect threats like beaconing, SolarWinds-type periodic beaconing. Both these types of attacks can be detected using deep learning AI as part of the Total Cloud platform. So what do we do once we detect these threats? As we presented yesterday, True Risk Insights is part of the Total Cloud platform. That's how we prioritize risk, and threats feed into the prioritization mechanism. And as you can see here, without having knowledge of threats, you would prioritize them differently. So critical vulnerabilities with known exploits, which is publicly exposed, if you don't have any notion of unauthorized communication, you would probably not prioritize that ahead of another asset that just has a vulnerability and is publicly exposed, but there is no activity, no direct threat going on. But if there is, that's the one you need to prioritize. That's the one you need to look at first. So in our platform, we have taken, as you can see, threats one by one and integrated into the prioritization mechanism where there was no threat information before. And it gives you a much stronger sense of what to fix in the cloud. So the first demo I'm going to give you is related to malware detection. And so what we're going to show here is that in the cloud, as we're beginning to see more and more malware, there are two things. You need to be able to detect them rapidly, but also you're going to see a lot of variants. What variants do is they have similar behavior, but different hashes. So what you're going to see in the demo is, for example, the behavior that I've shown below. Those behaviors are exhibited, but the hashes are all different. And we will also have two different types of malware that are detected. So what I'm trying to show you here is the power of the platform for detecting threats and how it sort of fits into the prioritization mechanism. But it's the detection that's critical. If you cannot detect threats, then you won't be able to prioritize your risk appropriately. And then the second example I'm going to show you are beaconing attacks. So at runtime, we actually examine network traffic and cloud logs so that we're able to detect a wide variety of different threats. Clearly malware, if it's downloaded, command and control, beaconing activity, which we'll show you a demo of, cryptojacking. One of the things that we've noticed is that over the last 12 months, we've seen a lot of cryptojacking attacks. There's been pretty much a resurgence of that, particularly in the cloud. These are public assets. So people are not just trying to steal data, but they're also trying to steal your compute. And so we've seen sort of a resurgence of that. Unauthorized activity, which is brute forcing, for example, SSH brute forcing would fall in this category. And then suspicious communications, which are scans. So you're able to detect all these classes at runtime using deep learning AI. And all of this feeds into your threat prioritization mechanism to come to a risk score. But without these detections, without these critical detections and this piece of information, you're unable to prioritize correctly. Again, it comes back to, do I just look at vulnerabilities and misconfigurations? Is that enough? We have a rich source of data that gives us information on the current state of your assets, whether they're at risk of compromise, and we funnel that into the risk scoring mechanism. So this is a big shift in the way we look at cloud risks. And a lot of platforms don't do this, certainly not end-to-end. So we're unique in our ability to use AI end-to-end to detect these threats. So I'm going to now show, oops, let me go back here, the first demo. Let's see. It's a little slow. So what you're going to see here is, let's see if this stops. Yeah, there you go. As it goes to the dashboard, you can see that it's detected malware in the CI/CD pipeline. You can click, and you're going to see that this is just the QQL codes that we use to query. And there are 3 pieces of malware. So let me just stop here. So what I'm going to try to show you is that there are 3 types. One is it's detected ransomware of the Monty family, but there are also 2 Trojans. All 3 were detected in real time. Again, the technique that we use does not use sandboxes. These are never seen before. If there's a mutation, it detects it instantly. And then the next 2, the 2 Trojans, Kinsing, have different signatures, but similar behavior. And what do? We will actually show you that the file hashes are all different. But if you go to the right of the dashboard, it's going to show you an explanation. It's going to show you the behavior. And all of this is generated in real time. So in the dashboard, when these threats come in, you can then go and see the behaviors when you go to the right. And similarly, it's going to be the same for the next 2 malware. As you will see, here, it's explaining the behavior. It's going through what kind of, it's doing account manipulation. It's trying to do hooking, trying to do a privilege escalation, a bunch of things that it has inferred by analyzing that binary. And that's the information that's showed on the right. And finally, the last, and you're going to see that here again, the account manipulation, hooking, file and directory discover, the behaviors are the same. So in the first two, the behaviors were different, but we were able to infer that the behaviors are different using deep learning AI and give you this explanation. So this is a critical component of the threat detection system, giving you confidence that it works and that it can be fed into a risk prioritization. This is the system that in the next page, the runtime part that I'm going to show you, that Centrica has used extensively, and they validated a lot of the results that I spoke about. So this is the end of sort of looking at the CI/CD pipeline. Then we'll go into the registry itself and show an image where malware was detected. And this just gives you another example of shift left, how we are detecting malware shift left in a variety of different places. And again, the explanation is available here. Okay. Next video. Can I do the next demo, please? OK. So now, I've shown you shift left, detecting malware in containers. Now we're going to show you at runtime what are the detections that AI can do that can fit into the risk measurement system. And in this demo, we're going to show you the runtime system, CDR, detecting threats. And this is much more expansive. So for the containers, we've shown you malware. But at runtime, we analyze a lot more signals, and we can give you a lot more information using AI. I think it's important to realize that all of these detections are very subtle, very difficult without the use of AI. The alternative is signatures. Just bear that in mind. This is all driven by real-time AI. This one is a very subtle attack. It's a periodic beaconing attack, very similar to the SolarWinds. And you can see that on the right, we will give you information on how it was delivered and the place where it came from. And so you can get confidence on why it was labeled as such. And we look at all the different protocols to be able to give you information on over which protocol the attack took place and why we labeled it as malicious. We also detect malware. And as you can see here, this is a little bit more broader than what I showed you earlier for the containers. A large number of different types of malware is being detected from coin miners, backdoor, Trojan, ransomware. And we're able to classify these as well so that when you get a piece of malware that's coming in, whether it's through the container or at runtime, we're able to give you the name and its behavior. So together, you get a good sense of what's going on in your environment. But again, these are the types of activities you have to consider when you measure risk. And again, when you go to the right, there'll be explanations. So the general way we've built our AI system is that, whatever we do, we're going to give you some level of explanation. And with deep learning systems, which are highly accurate for a lot of different activities, explanations are often missing. This is one of the areas where we've tried to put quite a bit of effort so we can explain why something is what it is, so that when you start taking an action, you know what to do. Now, this is cryptojacking. As I'd mentioned, those of you who are in the cloud, this is one of the very subtle things we've noticed. And it's not just us. We've talked to a few analysts as well who gathered this type of data. They're seeing a fairly significant increase in the number of cryptojackers that now are appearing in cloud environments. Again, people are trying to steal not just data, but your compute, something to be aware of. And deep learning can be, in AI, can be a tool for you to detect something like this. They're subtle, they're hard to catch, but it can be very effective. And again, the explanations are, as you move further to the right, we provide the data and the information that's available on the particular attack that we've seen. The next one is unauthorized communication. As you can see, this type of activity can be related to brute forcing, particularly, and SSH is an example of that we've given here, and that activity gets logged, and you can also take a look at it. And as you hover over, it will give explanations on source and destination and explanations of what the activity is. And of course, port scanning, when you see different kinds of port scanning information as well, that's also available for you to take a look at. And finally, suspicious communication. This is an area where one of the things that we notice is when you start actually just flipping open an account in the public cloud, you get prone to quite a few port scanning attacks. It happens to any well-known entity. It happens to smaller organizations too. But we also log that and try to figure out which ones are things that you need to keep track of. And again, there's an explanation. There's also, we measure both internal and external. Again, all of this is just to give you a flavor for what AI can do in terms of detections and how it would feed into risk calculations. But again, the data is there. It's open. It's not just a blind calculation. You get to see what this is and how it impacts the overall score. And again, on the right-hand side, we provide explanations. But as you can see, what I've shown really is a, can I go back to the last slide, please? So what I've really shown is a pretty extensive set of mechanisms to detect threats in the cloud. Fairly unique in its use of AI to detect very, very subtle threats. Fairly unique in the way we combine it to determine overall risk. But without taking threats into account, you will not be able to have a true measure of risk for yourself in the cloud. So that is the message I leave you with. And we would love to book my team, or the Total Cloud team. When Parag presented yesterday, he put up this QR code. We're very keen on having as many people adopt our new technologies as possible. So please, I'm going to leave this on the screen for a couple of minutes. If you want to, please book a meeting with the team. What we would love to do is show you the power of AI and how you can use it to reduce risk. Thank you.